And we are live.
Hi there. Welcome to Peppers and Flowers, where sales and marketing doesn't make sense. Please join us for the conversation.
All right, back at it again. So, I know you had something you wanted to talk about today that I thought was really interesting because I feel like it goes against, I feel like some salespeople would listen and be like, just, I can't even think of the word, but I don't think it makes salespeople pretty happy listening to what we're about to say, or maybe what you're about to say sometimes. Because I know sales guys are super like, call, and close, and make it happen, get our numbers, and anything below that's kind of unnecessary. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about, like that, like generic sales guy, outbound sales guy type attitude.
Yeah, a lot of times there's just, hard closing or just making high number of phone calls, trying to get in front of, as many people as possible. So for a lot of people, it really becomes like a numbers game, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I met some people when I used to work at a company to do sales for like equipment financing. There was some, like, they weren't. It's not like they were mean people, but like they were just like brutal. You know, I just remember thinking, man, they just sound so mad over the phone, or does the selling really have to be like that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought it was so aggressive.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I think as far as from a professional standpoint for sales and marketing professionals, there tends to be like, a time issue. It's like people in sales and marketing a lot of times carry a quota. And so it's like, okay, well, a quota necessitates like a month-end goal, some type of number they have to hit before the month closes. And so that's kind of motivating them to like, to work so hard throughout the month. And I mean, it could be a positive thing if that quota is carried, in a healthy way. But if it's not, it could be a real burden, and it change. I mean, that's why people change to become a little bit more coarse or a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah,
Or
more cores. That's what it is. Yeah, they've
yeah,
seemed really. It's not like they weren't good sales. I mean, they were getting their numbers and stuff, but yeah, they seemed really coarse. And I mean, there
right.
were some instances where like, um, I've never been in a sale where, I mean, I'll admit I've been in a sale, like a sales call, and I've gotten a little frustrated internally, kind of like, oh man, come on, but I've never been so upset over a sale that I like lost my temper or anything. And I know that's just like a temperament between people, but I've never felt like I'm going to lose it. And I'm pretty like even tempered really, but I remember seeing these guys yelling at people. They're like, F you, you can't blah, blah, blah. And customers getting pissed and all that stuff. I like never had that situation. But I wonder if that has to do with just this sort of, you're so involved with the end result, which is close a sale and have your number pop up on the screen, that anything short of that, it's just like so frustrating to you.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's something that is a syndrome of professionals who lose the fact that they are a professional. If you walk into work every day remembering that, hey, I'm a professional, this is something I do for a living and I'm really good at it, versus, oh, I'm here to compete, or I'm here to, be the best here in the office or whatever. When you start carrying those types of, hats around and wearing those types of hats, it's kind of like, you that's when you start to change as a person and become a person that, no longer is that professional. Now you're more of a, a competitor, right? And who wants to be around a competitor all the time, where because, you know, competitors, a lot of times they think about themselves, right? And so, but I mean, I think if, now we're kind of straying off the topic of timing, but like, you know, going back to that a little bit later, but I mean, if you walk into your office every day thinking, you know what, I'm a professional at what I do, whether you're a sales professional or a marketing professional, or for that matter, any other type of professional out there, you know, your air of, you know, the air that you give off to people will be a lot different, and it'll come across as a lot more likable, a lot more enjoyable to be around, because you're there to really help other people as a professional in your occupation. So, you know, but going back to the topic, you know, I want to talk, or I think, you know, what you and I talked about earlier is to get into this whole topic of timing, because like we talked about, when you're a quota carrying profession, or a sales rep, or a marketing professional, and it's like, you know what, um, you're racing so hard to reach those numbers, it could be a real bear. And what I want to propose today is really a new sense of timing, and not just a new sense, but another way of looking at timing, and another sense of timing, because I believe there's another sense of timing than just the chronos, or chronological time that we follow on the calendar or on the daily clock. You know, the quota speaks to the clock or the calendar time, but I want to talk about more of an internal, or a timing that is off the calendar and off the clock. And so,
Like your arcadian rhythm of sales process.
yeah, absolutely. If there is such a thing, I mean, you know, I call it Kairos time. So there's Chronos, which is chronological, you know, the calendar, and then there's Kairos, which is kind of more of a, it's a Greek word actually, but it's kind of like, you know, the sense of timing that you get. You ever get in those moments? I mean, I'm sure we all do, but like, you know, I get into these moments sometimes where it's like, oh my gosh, I need to call this person, or oh my goodness, I need to really reach out to this person. There's nobody telling you to. There's no chronological time saying it's like month end or whatever. But it's just this feeling of you just feel like, oh my gosh, you know, I need to reach out because I just feel like I need to, right? It's almost like
Mm.
a gut check, you know, this internal timing that comes inside of you. And what I found, like, if it's like, oh yeah, I just need to reach out to so and so, I make that phone call, or I stop by that office, and the timing is always right. It's like, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about you, or we were just talking about you. You know, there's always these comments like that, and it's like, oh well, I'm glad I stopped by. I'm glad I acted on this internal clock inside of me,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So
Well,
yeah.
okay. I have a CRM, so I can tell the CRM to like call this certain person, or I'll have a conversation and say, you know, let's connect. Let's get our, you know, let's schedule our proposal call a week from now, whatever. And so I
Mhm.
follow up in a week, and even though a CRM saying this is when you're supposed to call them, and it might not be scheduled sometimes just follow up. There's no specific time, but
Mhm.
I do get that feeling. Or even if we just have a continued conversation. Sometimes I like, you know, it says call this person today, and I'm thinking, no, now it's not. And I think it's easy to get it confused with, you have a gut feeling of, I don't think now's the right time. I don't think they're ready yet, or something
Mhm.
like something telling you that now's not the right time. Maybe you don't have enough time to, like, you know, the person's a chatter, and you're just like, I don't have enough time to do it right now. It's not going to go well if I just call and go, okay, I have to jump off in 5 minutes, you know? Um,
Mhm.
but I think there's a fine line that you can get confused with. I'm afraid to call this person because I don't want to, you know, like there's some sort of fear, but then there's
Mhm.
also some sort of like other side, which is now's not a good time to call. It's better if I have like more time, or a better scenario in my head, or whatever it might be. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I know sometimes the feeling creeps up, and you're like, oh, I really don't want to call, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So that could also be another sense of timing. It's like when you get, you know, when I get those feelings like, oh yeah, and I really don't think it's a good time to call right now. It's also that internal gut check telling you now is not a good time, you know? So it's kind of like the same thing, but in the opposite effect of like, well, now don't call the person, or don't reach out. No, you know, not reaching out is sometimes just as powerful as reaching out, you know? So it's like, it's like, oh yeah, you know what? My gut tells me I shouldn't call them right now. Yeah, I'll wait a little bit, So, I really agree with you. I think there's a lot of times we get that in the negative or negative sense, and it's still just as important to respond to that. But I mean, imagine on the flip side of things where you're like, you know what? Yeah, I think I should call this person right now. No one's telling you to again. There's no boss breathing down your neck, or not even the calendar saying it's month end or whatever it is. It's just you thinking that. And so you reach out and that person's like, yeah, I was just thinking about you. I'm glad you called me. Now that phone call could be a gem, it could be that one call that just really, sets things in the right direction. There's say there's a few other competitors and what you're trying to achieve here. And just because you reacted to that internal clock, you reached out where the other competition is like, well, I'm going to follow the calendar clock. See, they only call at month end, or they only call at certain times of day or whatever. I mean, they could follow those routines, that's more just like kind of checking off a list on the, checking off a box on a list. I called, I emailed, whatever. And everyone's doing that. But what if you set yourself apart and you added that, I call it a human element or whatever, and you're just like, I just felt like I needed to call you. Is everything going okay? I just want to check up on you. Oh my gosh, I'm glad you called. I had a question about those things you were talking about. We had an internal discussion, and my boss raised this issue. What do you think about this? And then now you're the savior. You're the person to come in with that answer. You're the person to respond with the thing they needed to hear. And they go, well, you know what? You're a little bit more expensive than the other people, but I trust you. You always come with the good solutions. And by the way, your timing is always good. Now, what does that mean? That you called at month end or whatever? No, it's because you called just when they were needing to talk to you. And so that's the kind of timing that if we could
How do
achieve.
you know, and how do you know when that time is right though?
I'll tell you, man, it's not a thing. It's not that I'm sitting here like trying to read the customer's mind or trying to even like, get into their psyche or whatever. It's more just me like getting into my own mindset, and checking with myself like, how do I feel about my customers or prospects right now? Where do I think they are? Where, just what do I feel right now? I mean, a lot of times, people discount their feelings or their emotions or whatever. I really think you need, as a sales or a marketing professional, you need to have all those faculties at the grasp of your hand. It's like, how do I feel about this prospect right now? Where are they? What do I think that they're going through? And then you just all of a sudden some idea might come to mind. It's like, oh yeah, Bob was asking about this technical question, and I think it'd be good for me to call him back and answer that. Or you just feel like,
Ooh,
internally, like,
yeah.
you just feel like, it would be good for them to hear from you. You ever get that
You know
when
what? Let's dissect that for a second, because here's something that I think is really cool. When you have a purpose to call them back, I think you can find that internal, like, now's the right time.
right. There's got to be I mean, it can't be a whimsical, like, oh, the little bird just told me to call you. Is everything okay?
And
I mean,
he's like,
yeah,
how did you know? I was
yeah,
like, I
right,
needed a guy to manage my
right.
Google ads.
Yeah, yeah. Well, here's something just to
I
kind
have
of
my
say.
credit card out already. Here you go.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad you called. Can I just can you just, give me your square so I can insert it in there and take care of it right now and we're good to
I
go?
can't.
I
Yeah.
mean,
What? Wow. How did you
no, but
know?
you know, I mean, there's an old adage, and I refer to adages a lot because, like, sometimes they ring true. But there's an old adage that says, great minds think alike, right? Well, what does that really mean? What does that, great minds think alike? So what? So what? I mean, every entrepreneur that has a great mind thinks the same thing. No, I mean, I may be, but like maybe it means something like, say you are pursuing a prospect, right? They're the leaders in their organization, great minds, right? And you're the leader in your organization, a great mind, and you're like, you're trying to come across a solution that's good, right? Obviously, they're trying to shop for something. You're trying to provide a service. So these two great minds are now thinking on the same solution. Well, if they think hard enough and long enough, they're going to come to that. They're going to come to that conclusion and go, you know what? This is the best solution, and here it is. So if you're applying yourself and you're not just being lazy about, trying to help somebody out, if you're fully applying yourself and being intentional, I really believe that you'll come across with the right solution. And if the prospect is also thinking actively about what the best solution is for them, they're going to probably come to similar conclusions. So when you call them, you're like, you know what? I put some thought into this, Bob. I really think you should go with social media marketing with Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is. And here's how we should do it. What do you think? And Bob's gonna be like, you know what? I was thinking about that too. And I was thinking, yeah, but what about this? And so now you can, go back and forth and fine tune. But by and large, that main solution's been achieved, because you're both putting thought into it.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting. What I find that works really well for me is whenever I struggle to find a reason to call someone, and the only reason like I struggle to do that is not necessarily because like I'm afraid to. I know there's better times to call for me when I have some sort of like reason or some sort of homework that I've done to sort of like bring more to the table to them. Because the last thing I want to do is make call and go, hey man, how's it going? Like, good, cool. You ready to move forward? You ready to do this? Whatever. You
Mm-hmm.
could do that, but I feel like the conversation goes better every time. Every time I try to contact someone who might not be ready to buy yet, I always just try to contact them with some sort of information, some sort of like
Right.
every time in between contact, I always do a little homework. Like, what can I do to go, hey, by the way, what reinforce what I said? Here's information. Here's something here. Maybe we just had a client that did this. This is what we're actually planning to do for you. Whatever it might be. I feel like it's so much easier to call someone up. Even if you raise your prices, I think is a reason. So go, hey, Bill,
Yeah.
listen, you ready to move forward? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, anyways, I want to let you know that our prices went up. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
something too. But because I'm trying to recall times when like I never had a question in my head with following up with anyone because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had some sort of reason to call them, not just to like debt collect,
Right. Right. Yeah. Totally. And the thing is, like, it's real. I guess the topic of timing, like, we could have all the solutions and all the right, sayings and stuff like that, whether it's, a price change or, a good piece of information to help them to learn more, whatever it is we're trying to convey to the customer or prospect. But like, I guess, like, the question is really like, when do you do that? Right. So, okay, I have this piece of information I want to give to Bob. When should I give him a call? And so it's like, I think a lot of us struggle with that. Like, oh my gosh, I want to call him. I want to tell them, I want to share some information with him. When do I call? When's the best time? And so that's kind of what I'm trying to get to right now is like, when is that? I call it Kairos time. When is that perfect timing, right? That's what I call it. The Kairos time implies like perfect timing, not just chronology. And so if we could achieve that Kairos timing, then then we reach our goal, right? So a little bit of it, I think, from my experience, is that gut check, that gut feeling of, oh, now's the right time. A little bit of it is the environment too. We are obviously in a pandemic right now, and so nobody predicted this. Like, we didn't say 10 years ago, oh, we're going to be in a pandemic, right before the summer of 2020. And so therefore we need to align our sales in this way. No one predicted this, but here we are in the midst of it. So this is a Kairos kind of time. It's like, what do I do in this time to respond to the people that I need to respond to, or reach out to people that I need to reach out to? It's a different type of timing. It's now just
how do you use it? How do you use it practically? Like, can you give me an example? Like, okay, so I have a new lead or prospect. So that just means anyone that has some form of contact with you already. Like, they give you your information, or maybe you had one initial phone call with them, or they sent you an email, or whatever it might be. Like,
Mhm.
how's that? Like, how would this? Give me like a practical example, or maybe something that you've done before.
Yeah, so like here's an example. I mean, and I'll try to carry the weight of the pandemic situation too, because this might speak to some people real time in our audience, our listeners. So like a lot of restaurant owners are affected right now, and there's even some talk that the restaurant industry should go, just stop what they're doing, and let's try something else as a professional or owner, and which is kind of extreme, and I don't think is the right answer. But I saw some headliners in the news that way. But like, all that aside, the restaurant industry and a lot of industries are being affected, and so it's like, in a Kairos moment, I think we have to consider the situation. If I was totally blind to what was going on out there in the real world and just trying to come up with some solution, say, right, I would probably miss the mark. Even if it's like a really cool or a good idea, if it wasn't relevant to what people are going through, it would still be a little off. But if I'm like up with what's going on out there and what people are going through, and then I come up with an idea or solution, then it's gonna be your chance of that being more in sync is a lot better. So what I would do in this environment is study the environment. What are real business owners going through? Why is it difficult for them? Is it because they can't open their doors and it's takeout only, so they're losing customers? Is it because customers don't want to go there for safety reasons? What's the real issue? So you have to study your environment, right? And that just goes for anybody right now. For anybody trying to reach a customer, you got to study the environment, study the industry, the trends, and even the pain points of that current customer. Maybe it's for them, it's financial, or maybe it's a human resources thing. What's the company you're dealing with going through? And then you look at, your history. Like you said, what history do I have with this prospect? Do we exchange emails? Do we have a phone conversation? What was the last point of contact? And so I always look at content rather than the actual timing of it, the clock time of it. Like, I'm more interested that the last time I talked to Bob over at the restaurant ABC said to me, well, James, I'm really interested in what you guys have to offer. It's just right now, me and my business partners aren't agreeing with it. Okay. So I'm more interested in what he said to me rather than he said this to me 4 or 5 months ago. Right. I mean, the clock time is always important too, but I'm more interested in kind of what was spoken. To me, when I look at Kronos or Kairos time, I have to always consider the spoken word, because the spoken word is a lot more powerful than a lot of other factors, believe it or not.
So you mean like you call someone up, any part of the sales process, whatever. You call them up and go, hey, where are we at, basically? And they go, well, I'm really interested, but my partners aren't. And so you're not taking it as a no, or you're not taking it as a this relationship's over, basically, move on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you're just thinking more in real time, which is factual. He's interested, partners aren't. Let's try and find a solution to make them interested or see what
Yeah.
he's seeing. Is that what you mean?
Or even just being just remembering that comment. So say it's like, you're thinking about your prospects, you're like, what, remember Bob saying that, so Bob saying that to me about his partner several months ago, so I'm going to just give him a call, and guess what, I'm going to ask him about that relationship with his partners and see what's going on. So when you reach out to Bob and say,
Oh.
yeah, you don't just drop those comments loose. You don't drop those loose comments and just figure
So
that they're not important. Yeah, you got to
So
include.
it's like the details of your conversation is really more important than like where they're at in the sales process. So like you could easily
Absolutely.
categorize someone and lose all the detail by saying they are in the follow-up phase of the sales process, but you didn't take note on like what was said, which was he's interested, but his partners aren't. So we have to get the goal is not really follow-up, it's convince partners.
Absolutely. So, something connects with you. It's kind of like when you remember that you're
So
thinking.
now you have you actually have a better understanding of why you're following up, not
You have
saying,
to have a why. Yeah.
yeah. So you could be like, well, yeah, I mean, of course there's a why, but now it's more detailed and not just, I need to follow up and say, you ready to do it? And he's going to go, no, my partners aren't ready yet.
Oh,
Did you
can you
talk to your
imagine?
partners?
Yeah, that's just sheer. It's just disrespectful, and it's also a little bit of that. What's that Albert Einstein quote that says, what's the definition of of what's he say? He said something like, "What's the definition of insanity?" Right? He's like, "It's when you do the same thing over and over again, expecting to get the same results or expecting to get a different result." Right? And
Yeah.
so, can you imagine like calling a prospect over and over again, expecting for him to one day just say to you, "Oh yeah, we're ready to go." I mean, there's got to be some level of thought put into it. So if we just call and ask for the deal, it's kind of like that quote. It's like we're just asking for the deal.
Right.
But we're
Okay,
not
that makes
what we
sense.
should. Does that make
There's a,
sense, Daniel? Okay.
yeah, no, there's a situation I can relate to this now. So I called this guy up, and he was, uh, actually he inquired. So we were following up to kind of get him on the same page and build him out a system and plan and sort of thing. And when we
Mm-hmm.
called him, it's like, this is Daniel, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, yeah. Hey, thanks for calling." He goes, "But now's not a good time because my dog just died."
Mm.
I was like, "Oh, okay. No problem. I'll call you later." And that could be pretty devastating. So that was something I can relate to, because now when I follow up with him, it's not really about the deal wasn't closed. Now I have to get the deal closed. It was just more of like, I can understand where he's at right now with, he wants to get started with something because he reached out. But understanding what do you call it again? The what
The
time?
the Kairos time.
The Kairos time was, we have to deal with what he's going through as a person in a way to kind
Oh,
of get him
right.
past that. Like, it's not closing the deal as a problem. It was like getting past the my dog died situation together in a way.
Perfect, dude. That is
Like
the
keeping,
best.
and it's really just like keeping contact with him.
Yeah, can you imagine? Just here's a good rule of thumb in case any of our listeners are just wondering, like, what does this really mean to me? To simplify this, just treat your people, your prospects and customers like your friends. I mean, I know there's always that fine line. Well, you're not a friend. You're just, we're business associates, right? Well, treat your people like friends, like, or a family member even, to make it even stronger, and just like try to understand them. Like, oh my gosh, I remember the last time I talked to so and so, they said their dog died. And then you're just thinking about that person as a family member, and you go, man, I wonder how he's doing right now. So you're really in that mindset of concerning about that person and what they're going through, not so much about, oh, I want to close this deal, although that is still on the table. But you're like, I really wonder how that person is doing. And you're like, you know what? I wonder if I think I should just give them a call right now. I feel like I need to just reach out, see how they're doing. We get those impulses, right? That's the Chronos time. So you're like, you know what? Or Kairos time. Sorry about that. That's the Kairos time. So it's like, oh, you know what? Now's the right time. I want to just call that person. What's that person's name in your case, Daniel?
I just made up his name. It was Bill.
Oh, Bill. So it's like, I'm going to give Bill a call back. His dog passed away. I'm going to just check on him. So you call him up, right? And what's the call look like? Hey, Bill, this is Daniel. And he's like, his first reaction is like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Daniel. We're not ready yet. I know you got that lead solution for us. We haven't thought much about it more, and nothing's changed. And then you kind of go, oh, yeah, no, totally, Bill. I get it. It's like, hey, I just want to check. Like, is everything okay? I know the last time you told me your dog passed away. I just want to see how you're doing. Now he's like, oh, okay, yeah, thanks, Daniel. It's like, oh yeah, no, yeah, things are better, and thanks for calling. I mean, we had
Yeah.
some things, so now he's in a total different relationship with you, and it's not that you're just using this technique to close a deal anymore either. It really is coming from a place of
Well,
concern.
it's like solidifying your relationship.
Absolutely.
I think with sales for sure, it's like, you really need to keep that authority though. Because if you don't have that authority, it's really hard for people to feel confident in what you're saying. Or I really feel like you should have a like surgeon approach to sales.
Hmm.
Um, but if you can get the surgeon approach and then add like a personal touch to it, because what I would say is like, there's a certain extent to where you don't want to just be like, "Hey, this is Daniel from XYZ company, hey, Daniel Matthews Media. How's it going? How you doing?" You know, and that's kind
Mhm.
of like old school 80s stuff, which isn't
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
strong anymore. But if you were to laser target your sales to be like the surgeon of your, your sales, whatever it is you're doing, but if you
Mhm.
become like the surgeon of sales, that's kind
Right.
of the approach you want to hit. But if you can also add a touch of like, no, dude, I'm just calling to see how your dog is. Like that's pretty, um, that can be powerful stuff too, because
Yeah.
that sticks with people. I mean, I would remember someone if called me to check that out, because I can't tell you how annoying it is when I get phone calls from certain people trying to get me to run ads on their platform, which you could probably guess who, but
Mhm.
their sales that got systems are so salesy. Like it's so old school. It doesn't at all make me want to like do it.
Mhm.
They actually make me want to do it. Every time I answer and they go, oh, this is, this company, we want you to do ads on our platform. I just, every time I hear them now, like I'm like, at least like it keeps dwindling away that I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
Because it has nothing to do with anything besides the tone of spend money with us. It's pretty much it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. It's kind of the thing. It's like, that's what I'm referring to with that Albert Einstein quote. It's like they just all they do is just call you like a broken record and say, "Oh, well, do you want to run ads with us on our platform? It's the best thing to do." They call you back again. Do you want to run ads with us on our platform? It's great. Do you want to run ads with us? And the third time, no, you're like, "No, I already said no." Like, and if they say maybe they should change it up a little bit and say something different, but I mean, they say the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, right. I mean, if exactly, there's part of me that would feel that my threshold for buying, because people have thresholds, right? So you can
Mhm.
have a really low threshold for buying, which means like you don't have to be really convinced, or you make decisions quickly, so you just go for it. Or you have a really high threshold, which means that sometimes when you have a high threshold, you could be very extremely frugal. So you don't want to spend money on anything, right?
Mhm.
Because you only want to spend money on something that you are absolutely convinced that your return of your diminishing returns
Mhm.
is like at the perfect equilibrium, right? So
Mhm.
you go, like, I don't know. I guess I'll give my oldest brother as an example. He's pretty frugal, and
Mhm.
he's extraordinarily frugal actually. And so we were out. He was helping me get a play set because he has a giant truck for my kids.
Mhm.
So we went to go pick up this, the big wooden play set thing. So we went and picked one up, and he did an errand. We went to the grocery store, and he went to pick up like a 30 rack of beer.
Mhm.
And I think he's normally he's used to buying beer between, because he just gets really cheap beer, 30 rack for like $15 or whatever, Keystone Light
Mhm.
or something like that.
Right.
So he got that, and he's normally used to spending between $15 to a little under $20, sometimes 20, but something like that for a 30 rack of beer, cheap beer.
Mhm.
And when
Mhm.
we went there, they rang it up, and they said that it's 24 whatever. And he goes, what do you mean 24? I thought it was $18. He goes, yeah, but then there's the CSV or CRV, whatever it's called.
Mhm.
There's this and this tag, and so it's like 24. He goes, okay. But for me, I was thinking like, if you want to get a 30 rack of beer, I'm just going to kind of like, I don't really care how much it costs. I just want the 30 rack of beer. But he's so,
Mhm.
if it was over a certain threshold, I don't think he would have done it. It would have been like, I
Mhm.
drove here, but if it's not under that certain amount, I'm not buying, I'm leaving.
Right.
He has a
Totally.
really
Yeah.
high threshold of
Mhm.
buying, and my threshold's pretty low. Like I kind of get convinced. I don't mind so much. Like when I go into car dealerships, I do it because I
Mhm.
know I'm going to walk out with a car,
Mhm.
you know? And I think we have to understand that part too, because you could lower someone's threshold when you kind of reframe or relate to them in some other way sometimes. But it also sometimes with people with higher threshold, it's harder to relate to them because they won't budge anything, because it doesn't matter if you're like built a lot of rapport, he's semi-interested, but at the end of the day, he just might not want to do it because he's so hard to get past the price.
Right.
So if he micromanages like such little purchases with like buying
Mm-hmm.
beer or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be so hard to close because their threshold's so high. Or like people won't buy anything unless they research every single other existing product on the market and go,
Absolutely.
this is the
Yeah.
best one for the cheapest. I'm doing this.
Yeah. No, totally. I get it. Yeah. There's an art form that I learned a while back in sales called storytelling, right? And this is a popular thing that a lot of people do to overcome some of these obstacles and challenges, right? So it's like when you get into a situation where it's like that, and they're like, it's a price issue or some rebuttal that, you're just like, how do I overcome this? A lot of what people do is they get into storytelling and they start telling a story. There's a customer that I used to have, and they felt the same way, and this is what they experienced, and this is how they dealt with it, and this is the end result. So you tell a story about another customer or somebody else, and you tell it in such a way so that like a parable, and so that person listening to you could kind of enter into your story and go, oh yeah, I'm that person, and I see if I made this decision, it'll work out this way for me also, and this is the end result. So you paint this picture for that person, they go, wow, like, yeah, you're right. So all of a sudden, like, this pressure of price or whatever the rebuttal is tends to, like, lose significance, and all of a sudden they go, man, I'm gonna go with what you just said. And and it's not that these tales that they'll always work, but it's a technique. Even when you, like you mentioned, buying a car, like when you go into a lot, I used to sell what was it, BMW. And so, like, when people come onto the lot, the managers would always say, you know what, James, BMWs, they're not really sold. I was like, what do you mean? They go, you never sell a BMW. BMWs sell themselves. And I was like, oh, okay, nice. A little piece of advice here, right? So,
You're like, cool, wait, real deep. Now give me something practical.
yeah, I know. But it was like, what they were saying is like, all you have to do is get the party into the BMW, and then take them on a test drive. So, and once you get them on a test drive, the BMW sells itself. Because 9 times out of 10, when the customer does a BMW test drive, they come back into your cubicle and they're like, you know what? I love this car. I'm going forward, So it's like, that's BMW's way of like overcoming these price objections or anything else, right? It's like no longer do those things matter, because when they get that ultimate driving machine feeling, they're like, man, I love this. I want this, right? So it was kind of funny because that's kind of how it worked out too. If I got people on test drives, they would buy. And so, yeah, so I guess just to that point though, it's like, people with high thresholds, with price or quality, or anything else, we have to respect that. I mean, if we just like knocked it down, they would feel disrespected, but we have to also have a way to overcome it. And sometimes, like, we could just say, anything in the world, and they wouldn't agree with it. They would just say, well, it's
Yeah.
still cheaper. I could still go down to Don's Auto Body and get a better price, right? So it's like, we might lose some customers on price, but I think if we have a process, by and large, we're going to have more victories than losses. And so as long as we stick to our process, we're always going to do really well.
Yeah. I think also there's a skill to being a consumer. Imagine putting a masterclass out that it's like how to be a really good consumer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like help the companies out and have a low threshold buying threshold so you don't have to be convinced as much and companies do better. How funny would that be? But I got to tell you, there is one thing that I find that enhances my experiences in life for sure as a consumer, is especially with cars. because I love cars.
Mhm.
Every time I go into a dealership, I only go in when I know I'm going to come out with a car specifically from that dealership, from that car manufacturer. And my experience is so much better, because the worst thing you can do ever, I think, is go into something just to explore details. And that might sound a little counterintuitive and kind of lame, because how else are you going to learn about it, right? But
Mhm.
when you go into dealerships, like, it's such a dog park there. Like, you're just going to get hounded, and it's going to be so hard to, like, get out of that place, without everyone just like breathing down your neck. It
Mhm.
can be a really uncomfortable place to just learn more about their cars and stuff.
Yeah,
Because
totally.
right. But if you can get to a point and go, I really want an Audi. And I think we're going to do the Q7 or something, because we have a family or whatever. And if you go in and go, nope, we're getting an Audi for sure. I just want maybe to figure out what package, or you have an idea of what you want.
Mhm.
Your experience practically anywhere is going to be so much better, because you walk in, you're going to get hard, try to get they're going to try to do a hard sell on you. And if you
Mhm.
go, no, I want to get a Q7 for sure. I think I want like the premium package. I'm just not sure what package though, but I want a Q7. I'd like to do
Mhm.
something today. I feel like you instantly jump past all the kind of crap with the sales thing, right? Hey,
Mhm.
why don't you test drive it? Why don't there's none of that. And it's more just like, okay, I know I'm going to do this, but I just need like the real details. Like, okay, so what comes, this, and you kind of streamline it. And then before you know it, in like an hour, you're out, you're confident in what you've done. The sales reps actually spent more time helping you than they did actually
Mhm.
trying to sell you or convince you. So
Mhm.
you've turned that time into really efficient, like, purchasing time.
Right.
The only times I've ever felt like really not confident or really pushed into things is when I've gone to car dealerships not prepared to get a car.
Mhm.
And I think that's a mindset for consumers for certain things that you're looking to do, where there's the internet. There's plenty of information on there for you to get the right idea of what you'd like to do. And um, if you can go into any situation, like, I need a sales consultant or whatever it might be, knowing that you need to get one. And again, there's tons of car dealerships, tons of consultants, tons of people that do everything.
Mhm.
But I think going into it with the right mindset actually would not only help your experience be 100 times better, but
Mhm.
also, um, I think you'll just be in a better place. You'll get more like things done. Like, I feel like you'll ask more of the right questions, um, to really fit your goals and stuff. There's some people I hit when I talk to them as like leads or potential clients. The ones
Mhm.
I really enjoy talking to the most are the ones that seem to be precise. They go, I don't know how to do this, but I know my goal is. What I'm trying to do is I need to get more of this. I need it to work like that, and I need this. And you go,
Mhm.
okay, that's actually great. Like, you already kind of know what needs to happen. It's in line. It works, and they've kind of set themselves up for success in their
Mhm.
purchasing process. So there's kind of like, it's so funny. There's a there's a way to enhance your sales, but there's also a way to show people how to enhance their consuming experience as well.
Yeah, I think the really good sales professionals that are out there are the ones that are aware of what you just said, and what they do is they realize that even though they want to get the big commissions check, or they want to close the big deal, or give out the best solution, that they're also aware of the fact that the customer has to benefit also. And I think the really good sales professionals do put the customer first, and they really see that the customer has to totally win out, so
Yeah.
not that they're trying to, you know what I mean. It's a service issue. It's like, you know if I close this transaction, say it is, going back to the Audi example. It's like, the Q7 sales rep comes out and gives you a test drive, and walks you through the car, and you like it and all this good stuff. And then there's like the negotiation of price, and it's like, you know what, we're going to give you a good price, but we're also going to throw in, some bells and whistles. You get, you know, who knows what it could be, 3 months of oil changes, and what,
Mm.
peripherals, and, extra floor mats and different things. I mean, the floor mats are kind of like a thing that, people always do, but like, it could be a nice package or something they throw in as well. Maybe a free navigation system or a sunroof or something, right? And so they're giving you some bells and whistles along with the best price. Now you as a customer totally feel empowered and you feel good. And and that's how you should feel. That's all customers should feel good about purchases.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can feel so much better if you know you're going to buy when you inquire about something.
hmm
So much easier. Like,
hmm
I called a company the other day to sign up for their service, and I knew I was going to sign up because I like checked other people out, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go with these guys. And I called them. I go, yeah, I want to sign up for your thing. And I went through it, and then in 30 minutes I was done, and I was just like, amazing.
hmm
You know, the other thing too is I would love to see a car dealership do this. Now, I don't. Maybe there are. I just am unaware. But I think
hmm
if you had a car dealership that had a greeter out front, that's all they did. They just stand at the front door. And
hmm
then if anyone walks in, they go, "Hi, welcome to Daniel's Car Paradise. How are you today?" Like, great. Like, so are you purchasing or browsing? And they go,
hmm
"Oh, just browsing." Okay, please go over here. And they hook you up with just a browsing rep, which basically means they are there to be informative and non-salesy. Then if they go, "All right, you're purchasing," they go, I think we're about looking to purchase today. Okay, please walk over here. Now you have a sales rep that's giving them the thing because they've set their expectation at that point and they've told you. So now you can actually tailor the service based on what they are. So you go, are you probably browsing or purchasing today? And you go, I don't think we're purchasing today. Okay, cool. And then you go, okay, here we hook them up with the person. So now that sales rep knows they're in a purchasing mindset instead of just like feeling them out. Everyone's in a purchasing. They assume everyone's going to purchase, and then at the end of it, they go, "No, I think we're gonna keep looking. Thanks for your time." And then they go, "Oh, spent like an hour with these guys," you know.
hmm
So asking them that question will help the dealership understand better like where they're at, and then
hmm
depending on if they're browsing, then you put them in like a browsing funnel, right? Browsing system where like maybe they leave them alone, or maybe they have someone helping them walk around, but they know that we don't push our sales time on that person because they clearly said non-browsing. When other people came in and said, oh, they were going to they're purchasing, so those are more worth. Not necessarily more worth because they're all valuable customers, but those are
hmm
where we'll send like our sales guys to.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's good. It's
I
really a.
wonder
Mhm.
I wonder if that would, I don't know, it's just a crazy idea. I mean, it's not that crazy, but I wonder if that would increase sales more because you're able to identify what kind of service these people would need, instead of just kind of blanket throwing sales guys at everyone.
Yeah. It's solution selling with a customized approach, and to personalize it for every person. And a lot of people, like we talk about the sales funnel, they do that. They jog people down the funnel of, okay, does this person need literature? I'll send them a flyer, a brochure. Does this person need a call? I'll give them a call. Does this person need some case studies or testimonials? I'll send that their way. So there's kind of like this funnel of where are people in that sales pipeline, and then we treat them accordingly. But I think what you're saying is to solidify that even further and say there's categories. You don't even talk to a prospect until they're ready for a sales rep, and then you assign a sales rep to it. And that's kind of cool. I like that. I think,
Right.
yeah, it almost, it shows you're really catering to the customer at that point.
Right. And also, what would be kind of cool, I think that applies to hospitals too, emergency rooms. So
Mm-hmm.
you basically determine what the person requires, and then you can sort them by who needs to see like a specialist or who needs to whatever. However, that's going to be sorted. So if someone
Mm-hmm.
comes in and you have to fill the paperwork out, to do all this stuff, and they determine that you need to see a specialist, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the sorting system, then you go, okay, well, you and I both know they're going to be in that waiting room for hours,
Mm-hmm.
and they're probably going to get annoyed. But if we turn this into a different experience that kind of hints at they're further down the process than they think they are with waiting in the
Mm-hmm.
general waiting room, how
Mm-hmm.
do we make them feel like they're closer, or they're being taken care of, or we're handling it? We could do the same sort of sorting method, which basically is, okay, you need to see a specialist. Please follow me. Wait in this room. This is the specialist room. Um, just as simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now they feel like they made progress. I don't really know why it would work, honestly, but it's just a hunch. Like, and it puts them in another room that might trigger some subconscious feeling of like, oh, cool. Okay, this is where I need to be. This is comprehensible. I understand.
There you
It's
go.
not like
There you
forgot
go.
about me in some
Right.
smorgasbord waiting room.
Right. Right.
So it's like that with the car dealership,
Mm-hmm.
browsing or purchasing.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, oh, we're just browsing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Why don't you walk over here and you can check this out, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll have a non-sales rep position person walk you through everything. If you have questions, she'll be here to
Mm-hmm.
guide you, but she'll kind of bring you through all our things you can learn and stuff, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
perfect. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And you go, no, we're purchasing. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Check this guy out to help you. No, it's the same thing. Like, you kind of streamline the process, and asking that question predetermines their perception of what they're going to receive.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've heard this phrase that people like to be empowered, and the real definition of power is, not so much having everything in the world or whatever. I mean, but it's having access to the things that you need. So it's like, it's real powerful if you're like, you know what, I really need someone to help me understand this. And so you, boom, you call that consultant, right? And there he is or she is to help you with those things. That's real power, to have that ability to access the things you need. And like, if we had the mindset as business owners, as sales professionals, marketing agents, to like empower our customers, man, that would make a night and day difference in how they would feel and perceive ourselves, right? I mean, they would go, wow, that company just made me feel stronger and better as a person. So what that speaks to what you're saying, like, they go into this one room and it's a certain look and feel that caters to them. And then all of a sudden they go, you know what, I need a consultant or a salesperson to talk to. And then boom, they go to the next room and there he or she is right there talking to them, and showing them all the things they need to hear. And so it's like, now they
Right.
feel empowered. See, they're in control
It's
now,
like
and they're.
salesperson versus consultant. See, that's pretty cool too, because I'm trying to think of an experience. So, okay, here's a great example. So when you jump onto storefronts, I think is the one place, anything that you have to walk in to purchase something. I think it's the one unique place that you both, it's equal parts consulting and purchasing with no sales reps, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So someone walks into a coffee shop, they're most likely going to buy a coffee. They get in line, they wait for it, they come up, and they're going to do one of two things, or both. The first thing is they're going to ask questions and be consulted. What drink do you like? I don't know what drink to get. It's like a really quick sales process, right? And they go, well, I really like the flat white. The flat white's really great. You'll love that. Or what kind of drinks do you normally like? Well, I don't like black coffee, whatever. So they're consulted. Then they make a decision and then they purchase. But you don't see Starbucks baristas pitching you. Hey, so tell me about what you're looking for today. Well, I'm looking for that. Okay, look, normally we charge $14.95. I'm going to cut you a deal for this cup of coffee, okay? It's not like you're trying to convince people to buy coffee. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's some point where it's like, it's the same thing. People walk into a dealership, and I get it's more expensive, it's more money, it's a little more of a investment into it. I understand that, but how could we tap into that more, right?
Mm,
Imagine if you went to a car dealership that was like a Starbucks, and you just walked in and go, it was more simplified than that. How is that even possible? Could you make it like, I mean, I guess that Fair app that you can lease cars out on a month-to-month basis. I mean, it kind of
right.
does it,
Right.
cars on demand sort of, but
Mm-hmm.
um it's just an interesting thing to think about, I guess. I don't really have a complete thought with that, but it's just interesting.
It is interesting. I think so. And whether it's an auto dealership or, a pharmaceutical company or just like any kind of a warehousing company, a retailer, it's like, you know, um, how they position their products or they position themselves, it really makes a difference. I know, trying to think of a key example from like a retailer standpoint, since there's a lot of
Yeah.
retailers going through a lot right now, but like, um, as you like a Starbucks, right? That's a good example. I mean, yeah, Starbucks doesn't really have to work too hard to close the deal at the counter. I mean, people know. I mean,
Doesn't that
a lot of
sound
people.
funny?
Well, it's pretty. I mean,
Close a deal at the counter. That's so
yeah,
great.
I know. It's like, come to the counter. I'll sell you extra whipped cream for $1. It's like,
I
but
know.
yeah. Well, yeah, there's certain places you go to, and there's already a sense of success going on there, and I think a lot of it, which we can get into later on peppers and flowers. I think a lot of it has to do with customer service. We've covered this topic before, actually, customer service. But
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
so just to say a little bit more, I mean, customer service goes a long ways in the retail industry and really any industry. But like Starbucks is very customer service, customer friendly. They know people's drinks, they know people's names. How personal can you get, right? And so it's like that service level, it takes away the whole aspect of trying to win a customer or whatever. Now they're talking about, bring a friend or get on our rewards program and start using the points. And now it's like just accelerating that relationship even further, right? So I think they did tap into that aspect of looking at your prospects or customers as friends or even as family. And that's not something that every business does. But yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, I
Mm.
mean, that's if even larger, even corporations that carry larger products like cars or houses, even, how do you really become known in your industry as the company that really treats people like family or like friends? That's a really good question, I think.
Yeah. There's something there. Like, I kind of have this nerdy thing about car dealerships right now. Um, and just to my final thought, I want to add, because there's restaurants, healthcare, hotels, car dealerships. Um, God, what else? I think that's all I can think of. There's more, but that's kind of the few I can think on top of my head.
Sure, sure.
They're kind of they're kind of lacking innovation, and not to say that they're flawed. That's not really what I mean. But I mean, in 10 years from now, right? Which is not a long time, but maybe 50 years. How much more can a hotel's process be renovated, or selling cars be renovated? Do you know what I mean? How much
Hmm.
more can a restaurant be renovated? Well, people might
Hmm.
go, well, we just automate the service, but you still have to be served food by some means. And then you still have to sit at a table and you still have to
Hmm.
pay. Like, is that going to be like that forever?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think so. I think the thing that's going to separate people who accelerate and into the, who knows, the next, generation or the future isn't really going to be the technology side of things and automation. I mean, although that is part of what we're doing right now, but I think it's really going to be more in the human element of things. People that really have a face, a personality, um,
Mm.
someone who could represent themselves in a caring, friendly manner. Like, a few years back, I mean, I've been doing web design kind of sales for a long time. And I remember having this epiphany thinking that, you know what, I think the future of websites isn't going to be your kind of technologically cool site. It's going to be the site that represents the company's personality. And so I even thought, like, the CEOs or the leaders on top, and kind of like who they are, what they're all about, what the founders are all about, and kind of like their web presence conveying that personality, and maybe even a little bit about themselves, to kind of like, add some personal touches to the technology of things online, and we kind of see that happening with Facebook and things like that. They're more personal websites for every individual. So I kind of feel like that's the future of the online space, as well as just kind of the offline space as well, where companies are drawn to when there's a human element to it, and it's a strong human element, and it may seem counterintuitive to what people are thinking, but I really feel like that's the way things are going to go. And that's kind of, by the way, what I'm referring to when I talk about this whole Kairos time, because there's no clock saying that that's how things are going to go. There's no one saying, well, it's 2020 and so now it's the age of human elements, but
Oh,
no,
yeah. Right.
you know what I mean? It's not a Kronos thing, but it's Kairos. Like, you know what? There's just a certain sense that I have that's how things are going to go. You know,
Right.
uh,
Right.
and the sense that in a lot of ways, technology has separated people. The device, things like that, has fragmented the American family. The also just fragmented people in general, and
I
so.
maybe. I
Well,
don't know
I
about
mean,
that.
I'm not totally bought into that because I still do a lot of screen time, But I mean, but in a lot of ways, but what about let's go out in the yard and play like I used to do, let's go play, let's have water balloon fights, let's play hide and go seek outside or whatever. I mean, those things are needed still, and I think they're very valuable. But like, this whole element of humanity kind of coming back into the corporate marketplace, I really feel like that has to be there. And it's more of a Kairos type of thing and a Kairos feeling that I have. And so, and that's just as valid, sometimes more valid than the timing of the chronology.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of good topics. A lot of good topics. Yeah. Today's left me like brainstorming a lot. A lot of. I mentioned the car dealership thing before, but we're getting deep. We're getting real deep. We're becoming like yogis.
Yeah, but it's fun though. Hopefully this is something that the listeners are hearing from different levels. I mean, whether you're someone just starting off in your career, or you're a seasoned executive, maybe a leader, a CEO, or a founder. I mean, hopefully this impacts many people, because it's meant to. And in Peppers and Flowers, I mean, we talk a lot and we help a lot in ways of profession. But I mean, if there's some life lessons or anything that can be gleaned from this as well, that's a side benefit. But I want to, I know Daniel and I would put together a podcast, but there's also a Facebook page. So if you guys want to look for Peppers and Flowers on Facebook, you can like us there and leave comments. Daniel, I was thinking about maybe posting. I have an article that I wrote on Kairos versus Kronos time, and I could post that on Facebook just so that people can go there and check it out. But
Absolutely.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we'll post an article, and then yeah, feel free to just reach out to us if you have any questions or whatever. Maybe if you guys have any recommendations for future Peppers and Flowers topics, we can talk about those items. But that's all I got today, Daniel.
Yeah. Same. Everything's That was pretty thorough conversation today. Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, friends, now that's a wrap. Thank you for joining us today at Peppers and Flowers. We look forward to joining you again next Saturday. Daniel and James signing off.